All right. Hello, hello. I think everything's working. All right. Yo, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the show. If you're new here, my name is Mitchell. Something happened. Okay, let's try that again. Technical difficulty. All right. So, welcome back to the show. If you're new here, my name is Mitchell. In today's episode, I'll be talking about how to catch up in life when you're feeling behind. How to catch up when you're feeling behind in life. So, I do these YouTube lives every Saturdays at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, and let's go straight right into the recap episode that I have on for you guys today, which is why we will do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So us as a species, we just like to do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. Maybe it's because that's what we like to do. We like to avoid pain. We just don't like pain. We don't. And so let's start out with a quote by Winston Churchill, which is, success is the ability to go from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So that's huge. Being able to fail and fail forward, pick yourself back up and continue moving forward. So, and that the recap episode was why don't we take action on the things we want? And so, number one, everyone has a reason to want to make a positive change in their life at some point in their life. So you either at a stage in your life where you want to make a change or you don't. Most people, they do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So it's the pain of, oh, I need to do this. It's the pain of not only do I have to put in the effort, I have to do it consistently in order for me to start seeing results and things in that nature. So a big part of it is fear of failure. So nobody enjoys failure. I mean, I definitely don't. But I have to understand that in order to be successful, I have to learn how to fail too as well. So that's just one of the things that I have to work towards. I need to learn how to fail forward. And that's okay. It could be very demotivating when you start failing. It's very demotivating. I understand that. But being stagnant in your own failures is more significant than failure itself. Okay. And hello, how you doing? And so overthinking, also best known as creating problems that are never there, by David, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Sikhosana. I just joined. Can you tell me what you're talking about? Today, I'm going to be talking about how to catch up when you feel behind in life. So that's my topic today. For everybody that's new here, my name is Mitchell. I'm a relationship coach. So I just want to share that to you guys. But, better to be in a good place with yourself in order to be in a great relationship with other people. So thank you all for joining. And if you guys are interested, stay tuned. And I'll feel free to talk about relationships. Right? Let's see. It happened many times. Yeah. But let me get on to this first. So one of the biggest limit of your potential is the act of overthinking. So how many people over here overthinks? Press one if you're one of those people that overthinks. So it happens to the best of us. It's how we can overcome that. That's the number one most important thing, right? I overthink too. Right? We're all human. So it just tells us that we're all human, right? And it's okay. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes. But what is not okay is to stop doing what you always want to do. Hi, bro. Do you think it's current? I'm not too sure about that, Lorraine. But anyways, so it happens to the best of us. It's how we can overcome that. That is what separates you as an individual from the rest of the people that are staying still. The last thing you want to do is stay stagnant. So thank you. It seems to be a lot more people today. So anyways, when someone judges you, it isn't actually about you. So just remember that when most people judge you for who you are, they're not really judging you as a person. It's a lot of it is about their own insecurities and their own limitations and their own needs. It's their own projection of how they feel about you. So there's always going to be haters. Number one, there's always going to be a hater, people who would disagree with you. And are you going to let them stop you from following what you want to do? What are some of the things you're passionate about? What's important in a relationship? What's the important things in a relationship? My opinion. I'm 36, by the way. My personal opinion about what's the number one most important thing in a relationship is who you are, what you stand for, and setting healthy boundaries and knowing your core values in a relationship. So it's really important to not overvalue chemistry with a person, but look at the character of a person. That's number one most important thing. Number one most important thing. A lot of people get into relationships thinking about what they could get out of it. Not a lot of people go into relationships thinking about what they could give. And so that's why a lot of relationships that I've seen in the past, a lot of it, even, it happened to me too. I always thought about what I could get out of it. And, that was the wrong approach. You go into a relationship thinking about what you can give to the other person without expecting much in return, because you can't give what you don't have. Talk about the complexities. I think you're talking about culture. Culture could be a little bit different. So the first slide that I'm going to be talking about today is you're right where you're supposed to be. Okay. So towards the meat of the subject, how to catch up when you feel behind in life. You're right. You are right where you're supposed to be, right? Motivation and direction comes after action. Hello. Motivation and direction comes right after action, right? If you feel like everyone around you, number one, is moving forward while you're stuck in the same place, you're not alone. I am not single. In your opinion, do you think life has a purpose? Life has a purpose when you give it a meaning. So you have to give life a meaning. So what is the one thing that is emotionally compelling for you to wake up? What's the number one most important thing to you? Like for me, I live and breathe this every single day. It's just that I do lives once a week right now. But I think about this all the time. It's the number one most important thing is to think about what is the relationship I have with myself and what I can give to other people. Because like I said, you can't give what you don't have. And if you don't have a lot of love to give, what makes you think you can give that to another person? You might think you can, but then once you start giving, and then your intention behind that is, damn, I really didn't have that much to give. And so because of that, you're like, damn, I need something back. So your whole intention wasn't to give in the beginning. Your intention was to give so that you could try to get something back in return. So it's being at a good place with yourself first. That's the number one most important thing. So yeah. Anyways, you're right where you're supposed to be. And the reason why you're here today and the reason why you're staying here as long as you did, because number one, you want to better yourself. And if you want to better yourself, there's a lot of things you got to start working on. And it starts with yourself. Can't find anyone to date and love. I'm not sure about that. I think that's more so a preference for other people. I'm not sure. So you should always ask yourself questions like, am I doing things to change it? What am I doing to change the situation that I'm in, right? Because if you feel like you're stuck, it's a good sign. It's a good sign because you feel like, damn, I could be doing something a little bit more. I could be doing a little bit better, right? I do believe in a higher power, yeah. So in fact, a lot of people feel like this at some point in their lives, and it's easy to compare ourselves to others and feel like we're not really measuring up to what their standards are. And just remember that, especially in social media or even maybe like some of your friends that you see that are doing a lot better than you, maybe financially, but how do you know they're not miserable in their relationship? So there's always different areas of other people's lives that feel like, hey man, damn, like they're making a lot more money than me. How come I feel like I'm so far behind? I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, so for whatever reason I'm not doing as good as they are. So comparison being a theft of joy, you want to be careful having those thoughts. You want to be careful, right? And Try not to compare too much because you're on your own journey. You're on your own journey. English, please. So in fact, a lot of people feel like this. They feel like they're not measuring up. And the truth is, everyone's journey is a little bit different. We all have our own path to follow, our own. That's it. Stop comparing it to other people. You are exactly where you're at. And if you don't like where you're at, guess what? You can change it. You're not a tree. You can change. You can move. You can do things. So, feeling behind doesn't mean you're failing. And thank you. Is it please? Yeah, thank you. Feeling behind doesn't mean you're failing. It just means that you're in a different timeline than other people, and that's okay, right? You don't fail until you quit. So, just remember that. You only fail when you quit. So, take a deep breath and remind yourself that life is not a race. It's a marathon, right? It's about the journey and the experience along the way. And so if I were to share anything about my experience along the way of me becoming a life coach and a relationship coach, the journey on that was, I wouldn't say I was in a lot of relationships compared to a lot of people. But what I can say is that because I've studied it and I learned from the best of the best and I started educating myself, I started working on myself, guess what? A lot more things started coming to me as opposed to me trying to go after the things that I want. Because if you start there's a difference between chasing someone and pursuing someone. There's a huge difference. And when you start working on yourself, you start realizing there's certain people that even when I thought they were, oh my God, she's one of the prettiest girls I ever seen, right? She's a 10 out of 10. And as I started working on myself, I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of flaws. Like I'm looking at her through rose colored glasses, right? I was like, oh my God, this halo effect. But then when I started working on myself, I was like, damn, like, she's just as human. She's not perfect. There's flaws in it. And I overlooked that because I was blinded by some beauty, right? Is it right to leave someone you love because you think it's better for both of us in our lives? I think so. It really depends. I think that's kind of like a blanket statement. It's a blanket statement, or it's very general. So you have to be a little bit specific about it. But anyways, take a deep breath. It's not a race. It's a journey. Everybody experiences it a little bit differently, but embrace where you are at right now and trust exactly where you're supposed to be, where you're supposed to be, where you need to be, right? This is assuming that you're taking massive actions, massive actions. And it's huge. You have to take massive actions. If you don't take any actions in your life, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. So just remember that motivation and direction comes right after action. Motivation and direction comes after action. So you got to do something in order to continue that. And then later on, as you're doing it so often, it becomes a habit. Now this habit that you have, that you don't want to break that cycle, it becomes a different type of influence. It's no longer a motivation. It's no longer this push energy anymore. It's more about what you could pull in. And if you think about pull, gravity has its own pull. It pulls you towards it. You don't even need to really need motivation anymore. You have this emotionally compelling reason as to, dude, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna eat well. I'm gonna drink lots of water. I'm gonna take care of myself. And guess what? Life will pay you back for that. Big up the Asian and Black people. Peace and love. Oh wait. Anytime I touch my phone, it just messes up. Okay, cool. So another one is, so if you're feeling behind in life, know that it is okay. It is okay to feel like you're behind in life. You're not alone. Keep moving forward. But also, our human brain has a negativity bias. We just have a negativity bias because those who focus more on danger back then, those who focus more on danger and pay more attention to bad things were more likely to survive. That's just how it was back then. And this is one way to, our brain trying to keep us alive, but we're not We're not running away from tigers. At least most of us aren't, unless you're out there in the wild and y'all doing some crazy shit. That, hey, you know what? If that's what you like, you do what you gotta do. But we're not. Most people, we're not. We're not. Right. So, second slide is overvaluing other people's opinions and undervaluing your own. Overvaluing other people's opinion and undervaluing your own. And Bill Gates, I think this is what Bill Gates said, but most people overestimate what they could do in 1 year, but underestimate what they could do in 10. So how many of you guys in here had New Year's resolution, right? Raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand because I can't see you. Press 1. Yeah, how many people like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that 1 year. And then you fall off within like 2 weeks, a month, maybe even 3 months, right? If you continue, right? I have to sub to you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I appreciate the subs. I appreciate the likes, the comments, all of this. You guys are driving me a lot of, and you know what? The more people that likes this, I'm going to start doing more short form content where it's not so much of a live. I can still do lives. I'll still do lives, but I'll do more videos and stuff like this. But yeah, there's a perception that everyone puts onto you, which is their projection and how they feel about themselves, which is most of the time it's their insecurities, what they put onto you. So it's like, let's just say, for example, I want to start a YouTube channel, or I want to start doing this. And it's like, there's too many people, blah, blah, blah already. Or, you know, success is like, well, I remember my coach, my mentor taught me that success is never crowded along the extra mile. Never crowded. You see a whole bunch of people over here, but it's never crowded over here. You see, you can't even see it. Can't even see it. The reason why is because most people give up right before they feel successful. And, you know, a lot of it is like, well, I'm going to give myself a year. I'm going to give myself this. It's like, well, maybe if you get lucky, you get successful within that year or a few years. And if it doesn't work out, I'm just going to give up. It's like, well, I'm going to tell you this. I'm not going to fucking stop until I become successful at what I do. That's what I feel like I'm put on this earth to do. I'm going to be successful no matter what I do, no matter what type of focus I do. And it's just to be laser focused on it, is to be obsessed, being obsessed with what you do. What's up, Greg? Please add more likes in here. Thank you, Greg. It's good seeing you on. So perceptions of what other people thinks about you. And you know, they're right. They're only right if you allow them to be right. And if you allow them to pull you down to their level. So it's really up to you on whether or not you subject to, down to their level. And the example is like, why would you want to give up a high paid job for blank, right? And why are you with this blank person or whatever it may be? Like, you have your own reasons why. Now, it's different if they have good opinions about it, and maybe you could start picking their brain and they have valid reasons, and then you can start thinking about things like, hey, if I left this job, will I still be able to maintain my lifestyle that I have in order to go to a lesser paying job? But it's less mentally taxing on me because it's eating you up alive. You don't enjoy where you're at. It's like, you have to write down the pros and cons as to why. So it's like, well, are you living up to certain things that you want? What's your lifestyle like? For me, I have a really low maintenance type of lifestyle. It doesn't really cost that much for me to live how I live. So whether I have a lot or a little, I could still manage. But it's really up to you on how you can do that. So always look at your downside risks of why you do certain things. You still want to make sure. You just don't want to jump the gun. Oh, I don't like this job, I'm going to leave. But it's like, well, look at your downside risks. What are some of the things that will happen if I leave this job? And if I don't have a job within the X amount of months and I'm still looking around, what will happen? So that's an example. So no one who, and if you have to think about this, no one who is successful in, at least in their own career path or whatever, or anything that they have started on their own, no one who is successful will ever really look down on somebody that's trying to become successful. Like, they just wouldn't do that. If anything, they know exactly what you're done, how they felt when they just started. So if anything, they're more encouraging to you to be like, no, absolutely, you should continue to do this. And if anything, they would even encourage you and help you along the way too, as well. If they got the time and things like that, but they will encourage you. They wouldn't draw you down and be like, oh, I think that's a stupid idea. Unless it's a completely stupid idea, then yes, there are stupid ideas out there. But if you're trying to better yourself, I don't think anyone successful that has already established themselves will ever try to pull you down to that and be like, no, it's never going to work out. Because they know how much work it takes. And don't ever let anyone tell you you're not doing enough in life just because they have something better. Hey, I have more money. Shit, you should have more money. Hey, I have a great relationship. You should have a great relationship. Oh, I'm married. You should be married too. And it's like, okay, to some degree, there's some validity into that, because people that value certain things, they will encourage you to do the same as what they did, because it helps further validates them. So, example, if they were married, they're gonna be like, when are you gonna get married? And if you be like, oh, I don't really want to get married, and their personality type and things like that, they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't you want to get married? Why not? Because it doesn't further reinforce what they believe, because they got married, or if they got married and had kids. So it's like, what if you don't want that? And then it kind of goes against their own beliefs. That's right. Live your life and your own speed, create your own happiness. Absolutely. And speaking of happiness is, we have to understand happiness is not, it doesn't have to last forever. Just like an emotion, it comes and goes. You don't have to be happy every single time, but you try to be doing at least the things that you enjoy most of the time, that create certain happiness. But if you're not happy all the time, that's okay. But you also don't want to be beating yourself up now too. So in terms of emotions, you want to be understanding that happiness is not a destination where you kind of reach and you're like, that's it, I'm happy. It's like, no, it comes and goes, right? And it's okay to be in this gray area where you're kind of neutral. You know what? Things are great. I'm not sad about it. I'm not too happy about things, but I'm okay, and that's okay too. It's living where you're at and being okay, and it's how you respond to that. So, yeah, you must live your life according to your own expectations and not others. Because a lot of people, if you don't know how to control your own emotions and your own time, guess what? Another person will come in and try to dictate that life for you. And do you want that? So, number one, you got to set and enforce healthy boundaries. What are things that are important to you? You got to set those and enforce those boundaries. Just like a relationship. If you're in an intimate relationship, you have to set and enforce those healthy boundaries. How are you going to do that? So, what are your core values? What are your core values? Communication. It's communication. It's integrity, right? Say what you mean what you say. Does this person have good morals? Right? Is this person good to you, good for your soul? Easy going, easy to get along with. So these are very, very important things that you have to consider when you getting into a relationship. So it's back to feeling behind in life. Like I said, it's normal to feel like you're behind in life. It's because maybe you haven't really educated yourself. And guess what? I didn't know that neither until one day I started picking up books and I started learning. And a book that I would highly, highly recommend is Coach Corey Wayne's How to Be a 3% Man. It teaches you, and if you're a female and you're watching this, you can still read that book and learn that too, because it's not just being a man. It's more about further understanding what is your energy. If you're more of a masculine energy, then you know how to operate. If your true essence is more masculine, then you know how to operate from that sense. And if your other essence is more feminine, then you know how to operate in that sense. And that is how you attract each other. And this goes for straight couples, heterosexual, gay, lesbian relationship, any type of relationship, it will still work as long as the energy are still, as long as you know what is your true essence, what is your energy. So, normal to feel behind in life. It's your mind telling you that you have more to do on this earth. People who feels like they got it all down are the ones that's actually at risk, where they feel like, damn, I don't really need to do anything. Like, I got it. I got it down. Like, be careful with those people. All right. I've not met a person that is like that, but if they feel like they're like that, stay away. It's a warning sign. Little red flags, right? But just be careful, because some people, when they overvalue the chemistry or the beauty, they're colorblind. They can't see red flags. They'd be like, that's a flag, but I don't know what color it is. You don't see colors. All right. So now, we are what we think about. What we focus on expands. And whatever your fears are, what you look at and you go after those fears, it disappears. Usually our fear in our mind is much greater than what's actually happening. So when I want to do something, I become like obsessed at it. And you are what you think about. So if it's playing video games, I studied the video game. Like I used to be a professional gamer. I played Super Smash Brothers Melee. I wasn't amazing at it, but I wasn't bad. So I was playing it. I wanted to be a pro gamer, and I kind of did it for a little bit, and I kind of lost the enthusiasm. But as I was doing it though, when I did enjoy it as much as I did back then, I was laser focused. I was like looking up like online and how to do this, how to approach this when this happens and things like that. And I started, becoming obsessed at it. And I think that's one of the great traits that I feel like I have, is because whenever I want to do anything, I become laser focused at it, and then I try my best to become great at it. And that has landed me where I am at today, especially when it comes to relationship. And I was like, wow, it would be kind of cool to be a relationship coach. Like, not just cool, but like it feels great to be able to teach, and not only teach, but to guide certain people to become better than where they are at, to become exceptional, not just to get by in life, to live an extraordinary life, not just to live a mediocre life. And we all have this one chance, why not live it to the best, to your potential? Because if you think about it, us as humans, we're the only creatures that really don't live our life to its fullest potential. If you look at a tree, for example, just think about a tree. A tree is not going to be like, you know what? I just feel like I'm just going to grow this tall. And that's it. I don't want to be 20 feet tall. I'm just going to be here chilling at 14. Like they don't, unless they don't get like nutrients and sunlight and things like that. Like, they grow to their fullest potential. So why can't we? Why can't we break that barrier? Why not? Ask yourself why. I think that's a great question to start asking yourself daily. I don't want to go to the gym. Why? I want to go to the gym. Why? Why not become better? Why? Why not? So major question, ask yourself why, follow that, and then you will get your answer. So anyways, when you want to focus on something, stay focused, grind at it, consistency, right? That's how you build confidence. And confidence is what builds competence. Or competence is what builds confidence. So you get the picture. You get the picture. So anyways, social media. I want to talk a little bit about social media, because the reason why you're watching me today is part of social media. To some degree. YouTube, what's up? So a glimpse of a story isn't their whole story. And, to put, play on words, Instagram stories. Just because you see someone's Instagram stories and all you see is like their highlights, it doesn't mean that is their whole entire story. I know people that can't afford shit, that be going out and spending way too much, more than what they could afford. For what? Buying bottle service things like that. I'm like, yo, you really can't, you shouldn't be affording all that. I mean, it's your money. I'm not going to tell you what to do with it, but there's certain things that, you could be doing a little bit better. Maybe you can invest it a little bit more. That's assuming that, hey, it's your money. It's your money. But it's not their whole story, what you see in the highlights. So, and comparison being a theft of joy, mentioned that earlier. And it does its best to convince you of that. Like our brain tells us a lot of lies. And it does its best to convince you. So our brain has a bias. I mentioned this early on already, that it has a bias towards negativity. It has a bias towards fear, more so than it does with courage. And we're a species, we're designed to survive. We're not really designed to thrive in life, to be super successful. That's not what we are. We're here to be on this earth to survive. But because we've adapted so much that we're no longer being chased, like we lived in a more so civilized than other creatures, animals, right? We're pretty civilized. We're not like just out there eating each other, right? And so our brain has its own perception, and it's easy to fall into this trap of being stuck because of our fears. Because number one, we have this fear towards bias, bias towards fear, bias towards fear more so than courage. And so it's easy to get stuck. It's easy to get trapped in that sense. So an example is we make problems more significant than it really is. That's one of it. Another one is we view everything as either great or it's lousy. Like, oh, it's great or it sucks. It's never really no in between. It's like, okay, it's cool. It's never no in between. And these are the cons of things, right? And another one is that there's no good from your perspective. There's no such thing as good, right? Focus on what you consider your flaws and minimize what you actually have. Like, so let's just say, and this is something that I do. I noticed that too. And I started realizing, I was like, I should give myself a little bit more credit, Mitchell. Like, give yourself a little bit more credit. So for the longest time, I danced, but I was never really I never really taken classes or things like that. So I just dance. I dance at home. I dance in front of a TV that I used as a mirror back in the days. When you could see your own reflection on a mirror, on those CRT TVs, those big heavy ones. Yeah, that's what I used because I didn't really have a mirror. Anyways, started doing that. Loved it. Started doing it more. Got a little bit better at it. But then I realized I was like, oh, Mitchell, like you're a cool dancer, but you're not great. You're not great. You're not like blah, 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 blah. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? Just, you are a good dancer. It's just that you haven't done it as much as they did. And that's okay because they're professionals. What you do, you just do the shit for fun. And for someone that does it for fun, I think I'm actually in a very good place. But I don't give myself enough credit. So I minimize a lot of my strengths. And I only really focus on like certain things, like my flaws, on certain things that I don't do so well in. And it's like, I got to give myself a little bit more credit. Like, you are good at picking up routines. You're good at certain things. And if there are certain weaknesses, well, let's work on that. Those are certain things that you could develop as a person. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of being human, not becoming human, of being a human being. It's being able to acknowledge, look, I'm not that great at this, but I could be better, because everybody could become better. And so the common goal of all those cons that we have is that it keeps you from growing, right? Just, making problems more significant. There's really no in-betweens. It's either lousy or good. There's lousy or great. There's really no in-betweens, right? You minimize your strength. Like, all of those, the common goal of that is it stops you from growing, or it stops you from experience, at least stops you from experiencing something different. And so therefore, keeping you exactly where you're at now, keeping you stuck, which makes you feel comfortable because that's where you've always been. That's where you've always been. So if you ask yourself certain questions like, damn, look, if you look at your bank account, okay, look at your bank account. You only know it to maybe some other people. Why is it always at the same number? Why? It might go up a little bit, it might go back down a little bit, but for whatever reasons, it's always somewhere between that line. Why is that? And then another question goes, well, maybe you're in a relationship. Well, why do you always keep attracting these same lousy people in your relationship? Why? Why is that? And a lot of that, if you really follow down to the trail of whys, it really boils down to where you are at mentally. That's your mindset. And that's what you're attracted to. So you are what you attract, whether you believe it or not. You are what you attract. So there's a reason why your bank account is always around that same number. Might go up a little bit, might go down. So what does it tell you? It tells you that even if someone were to come to you and be like, here's $1 million, here's $1 million, it wouldn't take that long for it to go back to exactly where you've been, because that's your mindset. That's where you've always been. And they'll always draw you back down to that. Unless you raise your standards and you build yourself raising your standards. What are your standards? So what standards do you have for yourself? So, like I said, this common goal is to keep you trapped. It's to keep you stagnant to where you're at. Now, also trying to play catch up. So if you are feeling a little behind in life and you're like, fuck, I need to do something. Absolutely. I think you should. And you're like, I need to do it now. And you go all out and you give it all you got. And it could give you the sense of drive, this motivation, and you know, don't get me wrong, it is better than doing nothing. But eventually, if you try something too quick, you jump in it too quick, too fast, too soon, eventually it's gonna lead to burnout, or there's certain things that you're gonna overlook. So that's, take your time, pace it. Like, why do you need to go so quick? Why is this timeline making you feel like you have to be at a certain place? Or why do you have to feel like you have to live up to certain people's expectations? Why is that? Like I said, motivation is great, but why? Ask yourself why. Feeling like you should give up because you tried, and guess what? If you tried and you burn out and you're like, damn, I tried and it was great, it was going good, and then you get this burnout, you go back to where you're at, wherever you're at in life. Maybe you go into the gym and you lost 10 pounds and you dieted too soon, and all of a sudden you gain 15. It's like, fuck, it doesn't work. No, it does. You just did it wrong, and it's okay, right? And then now you became less successful. You feel like not only did you bounce back, but you gain more weight, and then now you're like, shit, it doesn't work. It's like, and then it's your mind telling you, damn, you can't do it. You're not doing it right. Then how come other people do it more successfully then? Thanks, Greg. So now, all feelings are valid. I think we have to have a better relationship with our own emotions and understand that our feelings that we have, you and I, all feelings are valid, and we're exactly where we're supposed to be with our emotions. And if you don't like it, then change it. But don't be upset about it. Be enthusiastic about how can I change that? How can I change that? You know, if you find yourself, hey, when I'm driving and someone cuts in front of me, you get mad. You ask yourself why? Why did I get mad? Why? I'm pretty sure you can answer that. For me, back then, it was when they cut me off and I'm going straight, I'm going forward, and I'm going quicker, and they cut me off and they go slower. I ask myself now, I'm like, why am I such a hurry? If I'm late, it's because I need to go to work. I'm going to be late. Well, if I'm late, well, why not just go a little early? Why not just be out a certain time? 10, 15 minutes early, so that now when someone cuts me off, it's all good. It's all gravy. It ain't going to bother me. So what are you going to do to change certain things? How do you change it? So the quality of your life, and this is a quote from my coach. Coach Corey Wayne. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions you consistently ask yourself. I'm going to say that one more time. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions you consistently ask yourself. So are you asking yourself quality questions? There's no such thing as a dumb question. That's what people say. I don't know if I fully agree with that. But there are certainly good quality questions. So a question that you can ask yourself is like, well, what type of standards are you going to give yourself? What are those standards that you're going to give yourself? And can you live up to those standards? And are those standards too high for me, at least at this point in my life? Is it too high? Is it too high? And I think I have one more. I have one more slide. So this is for the people about, since I'm a relationship coach, I want to talk about relationships. And if you're feeling behind in your relationship, if you don't feel like where you're supposed to be at, or maybe you feel like, damn, I should have had kids. I should have had a family. I should have bought a house. I should have had certain things. It's a place for you right now. So if you're feeling a little bit behind in relationship, I think the number one most important thing is to really think back to yourself first, because you are what you put out. You are exactly. There's a reason why that person's with you. So if you think about bettering yourself, becoming a little bit more patient, becoming someone that listens a little bit more, that understands a bit more, I think that's gonna bring up your value as a person too. So feeling behind in relationship, you should focus on how to attract a great person by becoming the person you want to attract. If you want a good quality relationship in your life right now, you have to become the person you want to attract. So if you want someone that's loyal, well, are you loyal? You want someone that has your same values, your core values. What are your core values? Do you know that? If you don't know it, start writing it down. If you don't know what core values are, Google it. What are some of the things that this person must have that you want? And ask yourself, do you possess those qualities too? Are you someone that says what you mean what you say? That's important, because if you're not and you expect it through another person, well, that's kind of unfair for you to ask for something that you don't possess. You don't possess this as well. So in terms of my relationship right now with myself, I'm in a relationship now, but if I were to be single, and I'm like, and it's through choice. It's through choice. If I were to be single, which I don't want to be, but if I were a single person, I wouldn't be worried about, damn, I can't find a good person. I wouldn't be worried about, damn, I need this timeline to work out for me. I need to be in this relationship for this many years so that within this time frame, then we can start a family. Like, I'm not worried about that, because if you think about it, there's a marriage, right? About what, more than 50% of marriages end in divorce. So if you think about it, do a coin flip. It's no different than a coin flip. Most people that are in a relationship right now, about half of those are gonna be out of that relationship, ending in divorce, unless they work on themselves and they learn to educate themselves, and then they learn to emotionally regulate themselves and learn how to communicate, aligning themselves with similar goals and similar values. And so I'm not worried about that if I were to be single. Like, I don't have to worry about not being in a relationship. If anything, I'm always more focused on myself. And yes, it does sound selfish, but I think a person, especially if you want someone of value, you have to be of value yourself. So you have to understand how you could give to another person. So if I'm not in a relationship, I'm going to work on myself regardless. I'm doing it now, but if I'm not in one, I will still be doing it. And then when I do get into a relationship, I get to share my completeness with each other. So I don't complete this person, but I get to share my completeness with this person, and I expect the other person to have theirs too. And in other words, I'm not there to be like, hey, it's okay to certain things. Like, if you have your own insecurities and it goes against what I believe in, it's like, hey, I understand that maybe you have a lot to deal with in your past. Maybe you were cheated on. I don't know how your family's like, things in that nature. But it's not my job to fix you. And it's not your job neither to fix the other person. What is your job is to align yourself with the right person that matches your goals and that matches your values. And if you don't have high standards for yourself, what makes you think you can ask that for somebody else? So what does it mean? It all boils back down to, well, start working on yourself. Start educating yourself. And if you have any questions, you guys can always feel free to, send me a message. I'm always there to help. Eventually, I'm going to start rolling out some more paid content. So it's only for paid content members, for members only. But right now, take advantage of it. Everything's free. So talk to me here right now. But yeah, feeling behind in relationships, where you're at currently with your own mindset. Maybe maybe you're great when it comes to finance. Maybe you have that life already figured out, but your life's like shit. Or maybe you have those two figured out, but your health is like shit. It's like there's always something to work on. Okay, there's always something to work on. So whether it's your health, whether it's your finance, whether it's your personal life, whatever it may be, there's always something to work on. And that's the beauty of it. There's always something to work on. And now the question goes, do you feel the pressure that you need to settle down? Do you feel like that? Maybe in your 30s, maybe in your 40s, you're like, damn. Especially, and I understand when it comes down to women and the biological clock, there's a certain time frame. And now on top of that, more and more people, at least nowadays, more modern time now, right? 2024, they're less likely to have kids in their 20s, and it's like pushing more like 30s now. It's in their 30s, and that biological time frame is really not that much of a time frame anymore, because what do you have? Another few more years, maybe a decade if you're lucky, because having kids in your 40s might be a little bit harder than in your mid 20s, right? So it's like, do you feel that pressure? And you want to ask yourself why, but in the process, you want to build yourself up. You want to build yourself up, and you have to understand where the market is, right? I put market in quotations, because when it comes to women, when it comes to men, what is valuable in men? Number one, confidence. Number one most attractive thing to any woman is confidence. If you think about if confidence is what a man needs and that's not what we have, how do we become more confident? That's the question. How do we become more confident? And you start working at that. That's a good question to ask yourself. How do I become more confident? Work on myself, work on my finances, okay? Work on my mind, okay? Become the person I want to attract, okay? These are all great attributes that you can work on. Now, if you're a woman and you're asking yourself this, and you're like, well, what do men like? What do men want? Well, men value beauty. So are you taking care of yourself? Are you going to the gym? Are you educating yourself a little bit? And what is your natural essence? Is it feminine? Are you feminine? Or are you this boss babe? I get it. It sounds great on paper, sounds great to other people, but that's not what most men like. Most men don't want a boss babe, because the men want to be the leader. But it's like, now if you don't even need me anymore, then it's like, then what's the point of me being in here? So then it comes this power dynamic, and it feels like there's two masculine people in the same room, and that kind of destroys the sexual polarity. And that's not what we want. We want women to be feminine, but men has to know how to lead in order for a woman to feel like she could open up to be feminine. So there's a lot to that too. So if you're a woman, ask yourself, how do I become more feminine? How do I allow him to lead a little bit more? So you work on yourself. Maybe you feel like you're a little overweight or you're not exactly where you want to be. And I'm not doing this to body shame nobody. Look, body positivity is great. And I think it's great for mental health. But if you're over a certain limit, if your body fat's way too high, you're at risk for like chronic diseases. And is that really what you want? And then so if you start working on yourself, and you start lowering your body fat, you start being healthier, start eating better, naturally you're going to want, or naturally more and more people is going to be more attracted to you. And that's what men find value in. We find value in beauty. And do you possess that? Because us as men, we need confidence. And so in order to be confident and competent, we have to work on that too. So we all have to work on something. So it's not to point fingers. It's like, oh, you should subject to me because, you know, I believe my body is like this. It's like, no, it's like, just work on yourself. It's really not that, it's not that complicated, but we do more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. So where do you want to be? What are your standards? And so anyways, I know I took a little detour, but settling down, family, you feel the pressure, right? Well, you feel most people, you know, maybe, yeah. At least for my friends, my peer group, I see a lot of people that's getting married, they're buying houses, they're starting a family. And I ask myself, is that really what I want? Is that really what I want? And, you know, for at least for me right now, the answer is no. I don't need a house. I really don't. I don't need a house. But what I should be able to is, if I want a house, I could buy it. I could buy a house. And so that's something that I need to start working towards. A really good friend once said to me, he was like, you know, there's a difference that of you saying you don't want, or if you don't want a Lamborghini or you don't want a Ferrari. That's one thing. But the major question is, can you get it? And, you know, it kind of hit my ego a little bit. I was like, no, I can't. And he was like, all right, then. I was like, you're right. All right. So what does it mean? You got to work on yourself. You got to start working at it. Right. And so everyone works at different paces. You know, I felt like I was not long ago, like a few weeks ago, I felt like I was behind in life. And that's my brain telling me like, hey, Mitchell, step it up. And, you know, I was talking to my homie and he was like, you know what? We're human. We don't all have it figured out, but we do the best that we can. We do the best that we can. And follow what you have to do. You can start educating yourself on it. That's important. So I was like, no, you're right. And so, but I'm lucky to be grateful for where I am at in life, right? So that's the most important thing for me, is being grateful for my mind to tell me that, hey, you know what? I still have more to work on. That's great. So at least I'm not at risk. I don't feel like I have everything already. I'm not at risk. I'm cool right now. I got a lot more things to work on. And so we don't have to have it all figured out. We should only focus on what we can control, and the pieces will fall where it may. And then you want to start identifying the meaning that you're making out of not having reached those particular goals or those milestones that you set for yourself. So if you're in a relationship and you're like, damn, my relationship's not really doing too well, then you want to ask yourself, well, why isn't it working well? How am I communicating? Am I listening enough? So as a guy, you have to understand, I have to understand that women, they like to solve their problems by talking about things. They like to express themselves. And it's not my job to solve their problems, because most guys, what do we like to do? The moment you talk, shit, you need to do this, girl. You need to do this. And last thing she wants to hear is for me to want to tell her what to do. And so that's why they retaliated. Woman has now retaliated and called it mansplaining. I guarantee you it was not a dude that made that word up. It was a woman that got pissed off at men and was like, oh, he mansplaining now. And to some degree we do, because we like to solve problems. That's our nature. Masculine energy is about overcoming challenges, breaking through barriers, having a purpose, things like that. So we like to solve shit. We like to solve things. So it's not our fault for wanting to solve things. But then now we have to understand the language of a woman. in order for us to coexist with each other. So it's like, take a step back. If your lady wants to talk about certain things of her making her feel a certain way, let her talk. She's gonna love you for that. Absolutely. And so you gotta learn womanese. You gotta learn womanese. That's what you gotta do, right? So anyways, identify the meaning, right? Making for not reaching those milestones. Start asking yourself why. How can I understand her a little bit more, right? How you interpret or perceive things make it different on how you experience them. So if you have not yet gotten married or bought your first home or started a family and things like that, what's the meaning that what are the meanings that you're giving to that? What is it? If you're thinking about like, damn, you're a failure, because some of my friends have kids, excuse me, or something you have done wrong, or it means you're not good enough, or compared to other people, you will most likely experience distress. But if you focus on the solution on things, right? If you focus on the solution and how to become better and not be bitter about it, you only will become better. You focus on solution and you're not bitter, you become better. Hashtag. People still use hashtags. Anyway, the best investment that you can give to anything is investing to yourself. Best investment you can ever have is investing in yourself. Becoming slightly better every day, about 1%. 1% is a lot. Becoming better every single day. And more importantly, don't be too hard on yourself, because we're all human. We all make mistakes, and you are exactly where you're supposed to be. And so that being said, that is the end of the show. I'm going to go over some of the summary of what I've been talking about today. And then we're going to close out. Okay. So number one, first slide, you're right where you're supposed to be. If you feel like everyone around you is moving forward and you're stuck, you're not alone. Ask yourself, am I doing things to change that? It's easy to compare ourselves to other people when we feel like we're not measuring up. It's very easy. And so number two, overvaluing other people's opinion and undervaluing your own, right? There's this perception that everyone puts onto you, which is their projection of how they feel about themselves. And if they don't feel like they value themselves a lot, they're going to drag you down to their level. And you have to remember that we are what we think about. We are what we think about. Number three, third slide. A glimpse of their story isn't the whole story. Your mind can lie. Our brain tells us biases all the time, right? We lean more towards fear than courage. We're species that's designed to survive, not really to thrive. So the quality of your life is in direct proportion to the quality of the questions that you consistently ask yourself. Are you asking yourself good quality questions? And lastly, number four is behind in the relationship. The one we just talked about. Everyone works at different paces. And so if you're feeling behind in life, be grateful for where you are at. Just be grateful. What are some of the things that you're grateful for? And if you focus on the things you're grateful for, you're more likely to move forward, less likely to be bitter. Then you're more likely to be better. Quote me. All right, write it down. Leave it in a comment below. And the best investment is investing in yourself. That being said, thank you all for staying on this live. I really appreciate your time. Today's episode was how to catch up when you're feeling behind in life. And I'll catch you guys next week. Okay, if you do find this video content of value, you guys could share it to other people. There's a PayPal link down below if you found anything valuable in this content. And I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.